A ship hovered motionlessly over the abandoned city. The floodlights that pierced the night illuminated its metallic hull. The rest of the vessel's darkened silhouette created a black void in the starry sky. On board, dozens of Ajixa were donning their battle armor. The suits, designed to cover the entirety of their avian form, were made of a high-density composite, consisting of carbon nanotube intermeshed with a tungsten alloy. Underneath the topmost layer, a lining of hyper-compressed liquid nitrogen acted as a hydraulic buffer, absorbing and dispersing the impact of anything large enough to damage the outer layer. The final layer was made of a silky substance that the Ajixa called vapka, that was extracted from the roots of their great trees. It was several times stronger than steel, but softer than cotton. When fully charged, the armor had been known to withstand a direct impact from a Hellfire turret with only minimal damage. The weapon systems were also impressive. Each of the Ajixa's 2 lower arms were encased into handheld plasma throwers. The superheated materials that the throwers produced could be honed to fire a compact slug, or simply spray plasma like a flamethrower. These weapons had been used to devastating effect in suppressing the occasional uprisings of vassal species. It was the upper 2 arms that the Ajixa prided themselves on. These 2 arms each contained a pair 4-foot retractable blades, one above the talon and one below. When retracted, only the gleaming tips could be seen protruding from their armored forearms. The blades were sharp enough to cut through diamond inside the helmets, which had extended nearly a foot behind the aliens, and eventually terminated in a sharp point, was a heads-up display that showed data about the suit's internal functions, as well as continuous readings of the surrounding area. The suit's battle suite programming was able to gauge threat level and determine friend from foe instantaneously. The warriors themselves were as fearsome as their suits. They came to warfare with a natural grace. Trained from the beginning of their second molting, mere broodlings were forged into the interstellar soldiers that had carved the Ajixa's place in the galaxy. At an average height of 8 feet, with the largest more than 10, they towered over the battlefields they entered. Battlefields from which they inevitably left victorious. Swaths of destruction were left in their wake. It was the Ajixa way. Captain Venick surveyed the city. His scanners noted that several hundred humans still huddled in basements and bunkers, clutching to each other, afraid. None of them, however, appeared to be his prey. Where is Edwards? Venick wondered. He was determined to find her. His failure to protect his vessel from a human suicidal maneuver this morning had eaten away at his pride. The others thought him inexperienced. In his head, he was sure they also thought him unworthy. I am worthy. He would prove it to them and to his commander. Still, Venick was beginning to doubt and fear the nobility of their cause, especially after Commander Essel had fired the magenta cannon. Though, to speak out against the leader would be just as suicidal as the pilot had been. It was past the point of no return. If the councils discovered what had transpired here, his head would be taken along with Fleet Commander Essel's. Certainly, the Honor Bade might be sympathetic, and to a lesser extent the Honor Chixas might offer redemption. But the Honor Edict would have the final say, and theirs would be no words of forgiveness. Commander Essel has doomed us all. Venick returned to the thought. King Essel. He reminded himself sharply. Drakic, he spoke to his cons officer. Have you found any signal that would betray the humans we're about? No, sir, Drakic responded, much to Venick's frustration. He felt the feathers of his arms begin to raise up. Keep searching, he commanded. He could not burn this Washington until he knew for certain that she was not among the cowering humans. If he killed her, he had no doubt that King Essel would have his head. In recent days, Agran had proven that he didn't need much convincing to cull any who resisted his will. Venick wanted very much to go on living a while longer, even if he was stranded on this worthless rock under the command of a madman. His superior had gone silent after his orders to bring the human president to his ship. Venick suspected that the Ajixa had decided to retire to his chambers for the evening. The young captain wished he could do the same. While he waited for the human to be found, Venick had begun to read the preliminary translations of the humans' communications. It appeared that this internet contained nearly all of their rudimentary knowledge. Some of it was surprisingly similar to the Ajixa's own writings. There were humans that preached peace and understanding. There were humans that believed in courage and fortitude. Spirituality and skepticism. War and peace, love and hate. There were so many dualities that Venick found it hard to believe any species so divided had come so far. At one point, Venick got lost in what must have been some kind of story. The humans called it poetry, which had no HFY analog. But what made it different was beyond him. The last lines of the passage stood out to him. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. Thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life, our fortunes must be wrought. Thus on its burning anvil shaped each burning deed and thought. Venick finished the poem and sat quietly for many moments. For reasons that he didn't fully understand, the poem reminded him of his brood mother. He remembered the way that she had raised her hatchlings, fierce and proud. She had been stern to them, teaching them right and wrong. If they went astray, she was quick to drag them back into the fold. Still, to the outside world, she had been their advocate. Always and unerringly. She demanded that they be treated with respect and protection from others. She did so because they were hers and she theirs. Mother, what would you say about what it is that I do? Venick shifted uncomfortably. You warned me that there would come a day when I would regret joining the military. I wonder if that day has come. Sir, Draka called excitedly, interrupting his captain's brooding. I've intercepted a transmission from the target. Venick's head feathers raised up slightly. In part because he would now be able to complete his mission. Mostly, he was glad to be free from the questions of his quiet mind. Patch it through, he commanded. A husky feminine voice sounded over the comms. The way that these humans spoke was very musical, and Venick found that he rather liked it. Then the translation program began to speak in his own tongue. No, darling, the voice said softly, I'm fine. I think I'm fine. Julia, Jesus, what has the world come to? What are they? A masculine voice responded. We don't really know much. My advisors believe that they are rogue. Some runaway members of an alien society. I don't know. Does it really matter now? There was a pause. Then the deeper voice replied. No, I guess not. Are you sure you're okay, July? James, I'm fine. I'm exhausted. I'm on the verge of breaking down. But I'm trying to keep it together. Air Force One has a comfortable bed. I'm going to try to get some sleep. Yeah, do that. The male voice was dripping with emotion. Honey, I love you with all my heart. I know, I love you too, James. There was a long pause. And then the woman spoke again. James, I've been thinking. I think that. What is it, July? I never mind, it's stupid. I'll tell you when I see you. You're sure that they can get you there? The man chuckled. I'm the first gentleman. I'll beat them over the head if I have to. I'll meet you there. Don't you worry. Good. I miss you, James. I miss you too. See you soon. Yeah. Alright, night, sweetheart. Good night, Julia. The male voice seemed sad to have to go. Venick was confounded by the conversation. It sounded like something he would say to his nestmate. It sounded like what he had said before he left the homeworld. The image of a beautiful young HFY returned to his mind. She had been so eager to start a clutch with him. Venick had begged her to wait a while. Then, he had felt the call of war and left her behind. Sure, he had told her things about honor and service. He spoke to her at length about duty and valor. In reality, Venick had been too afraid. Too afraid of what might become of him if he agreed to her proposal. Not for the first time. He wondered at the prudence of that decision. Did you get a position? Venick asked after a moment, pulling himself back out of the recesses of his mind. Yes, sir. Drakak responded quickly. Good, take us there now. Venick felt the ship's engine power up. The fusion coil's hum caused the ship to vibrate gently. To the ship's captain, it was a comforting feeling. It meant that they were still flying. Above Washington, the ominous ship began to move. The nation's capital was as silent as the grave. A few families who had chosen not to evacuate huddled together tightly. Some praying and some fearing. A mother sang a low lullaby to her sleeping baby. A single tear rolling down her cheek. A son sat with his dying mother, alone in the ICU ward. If she couldn't be moved, then neither could he. From his seat atop a set of mighty white stone steps, Abraham Lincoln looked out over the city, his expression unchanged by the current situation. Perhaps the man had seen worse before. In either case, he had little to say, but his eyes held a sort of measured optimism. The front of the alien vessel lit up brighter than the sun. By the time the raging inferno died down, the ship was gone. Slowly, the fires went out and the molten metal cooled. Even the scattered flames that flickered into the cool night air burned their way to ash. When the sun rose again, the ruins of Washington were once again as silent as the grave that they had become. The author's name and the link to original text is in the description. Consider tapping the thumbs up and pressing the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video.